Everyone, Merry Christmas, because I know next week is Christmas. In case I don't get to see you guys for the holiday season until after Christmas, I want to say Merry Christmas. Hi, I'm your host, Professor Tuck, if you don't know who I am. I've got a lot of videos I've done over the last few years, starting from homelessness and working my way to no longer being homeless. So I want to talk about two subjects today. I want to talk about the terror across America because there's a couple of big things that have happened, and I just want to give my opinion on some of these things. But I also want to talk about what it's like coming off the streets. I want to give, for those of you that I see are struggling with the fact that you might become homeless, or thinking about, I'm homeless, how do I get off the streets? I kind of want to give you some hope, but I also want to give you some things to work on, to be prepared for, to be thoughtful about, so that should you go on the streets and get off the streets, that you actually have something to rely on, or at least some sort of Rosetta Stone to go by yourself, so that you can be aware of the things that are going on with you. And for those of you that are uh, but anyways, let's kind of get into some of this. But I want to let you guys know that that this episode is sponsored by Stephanie at Open Air Properties. If you are looking to go off grid, if you're looking for a blank slate of land, she operates in the states of Arizona, Arkansas, and Colorado, all near trails, all very close to trails. So if you're a hiker, she's an avid hiker. So am I. That was kind of one of the first things we had in common when we first started talking. Now, I bought a piece of land from her, and I am as happy could be to be able to have that piece of land, and to be able to have somebody that was kind enough to do owner financing, so that I could go from being on trail, or a nomadic homeless person, to actually being able to have a place to call home, because of some of the things that I've done here on YouTube. So, I have bought my land from Stephanie at Open Air Properties. It's Christmas time, so she's running specials. If you're wanting to get somebody a gift this year, a piece of land would be very important, especially considering all of the chaos that's going on, especially terror in the cities. If being in the larger cities may become more dangerous, to where it might become more feasible to go and live somewhere like Arizona, Colorado, or Arkansas. So reach out to Stephanie at openairproperties.net. And if you let her know that you come from this community, give her just tell her that you heard this from Friar Tuck. She will give you $50 off of your deposit when you decide to go ahead and put your down payment for your land. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into our actual topics. So as far as terror across America, there's two big things. I want to draw your attention to the group out of LA. They call themselves the vigilante group, or the hostile or extremist group. They called themselves Black Lotus, but it was Turtle Island is the group that they spun out of. So basically everybody there was also participating in Black Lotus. Now, I did get to see some of the FBI drone footage of them, practicing on how to do explosives and things like that. Now, there is one point of hesitation that I have when it comes to that, and that is this. Okay. In Portland, Oregon, oh my gosh, this is probably like 2007, maybe through 2010. There was a Somali kid who was caught by the FBI. They said, "Oh, look, we found a terrorist, and he's an immigrant, and da 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 da." And the thing is when the kid ended up going to court, luckily he had a decent public defendant, or public defender. But when he went to court, it was actually proven that the FBI groomed him, that he really didn't want to do that stuff, but he was trying to make friends because he was in a new country, in a new place, and he thought it was a good thing to do. And he even resisted it a little bit as far as doing that, but he wanted to keep his friend, so therefore he followed through on this. So therefore they said that the FBI had groomed this kid and pushed this kid to do something that, although he would have done it if it would have been like an actual terror group, the fact that he was groomed by the FBI shows that the kid really had no intention. It was an environmental or a peer pressure that put him in that direction. So therefore, the kid got let off, and the FBI got a black eye. Knowing this, because this comes from my home area, knowing this has kind of has me concerned about this whole Black Lotus thing. Now, I know on the left coast they've gotten really extreme. There's a reason why I left in 2017. I said I would never go back. And Arizona is about as far back west as I will ever go. And so I think that these guys, I would really like to see how they came to be and how they got radicalized and what role government agencies played as they were infiltrating the group, or how did they actually come to the basic understanding of what's going on. So that would be a question that I would really want to know before I sat there and said, yes, we are now dealing with homegrown terrorism, because homegrown terrorism is, once that starts happening, that is the prequel to a civil war to begin with, because it's just everybody's going to be on edge, everybody's going to start arming up, and then you're going to have back alley fights and things like that, that could become fatal or lethal. Think of the flash mobs that they had in the 1950s, where people would show up with chains and brass knuckles and everything else like that. Nobody ever showed up with actual weapons. And at least from the history that I've learned from that era, is the reason why they did it that way is because if you were going to do it, you had to do it with intent to take somebody else's life. So therefore, it was a way you could beat somebody up and let them know that you are the dominant one. Is when you're having border clashes, with different gangs or whatever. It was a way for them to be able to have a disagreement without the loss of life. I think that because of how extreme and polarized we have gotten, and the amount of fear, because I mean, I'm listening to these kids at work. It's like, and even people that are in their 30s, you listen to them, like they're like, oh my gosh, this happened, or oh dang, that happened, or da 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 da, that happened. And it really got to a point where it's like people are concerned about things that are so they're so taken aback by things that are actually normal. I don't know, but that's the one case. And then, so let's see, I have a burn, I have a bone, it's a planet next to your house. I hate this freaking thing. um um, okay. I don't know what that means, but okay. Merry Christmas and peacefully. Okay, thanks, TJ. What's up, Matthew, and Crito, Cortito? Okay, so the second one that I want to talk about is the Brown University thing. Okay, so the Brown University thing, and this is my old man and I had a talk about this. I personally think, this is my personal opinion, I think that this may have been a clandestine, like a government sanctioned, or at least at some organizational level sanctioned hit on the MIT professor. Because from my opinion, this is something I was thinking about as I was learning the facts. It's like, this does not, this makes more sense to where Brown was meant to be a distraction to pull resources away, so that this individual could therefore get ease of access into his actual target. A lot of this idea comes from, if you guys have ever watched Blacklist, there's a guy who goes through and he does a public shooting, and he takes the life of like 2 or 3 individuals, and it looks like a random shooting, but in reality only one of those individuals was on his list. The other 2 were there to kind of cover up his tracks, to make it look like a mass event versus an actual hit on someone. So with that as an idea, I mean, because I mean, if TV can come up with it, individuals can come up with it. So using that as a backdrop, I think that the Brown University thing was an actual distraction to be able to pull resources away from the actual target. Now, this professor is supposed to be at the cutting edge of nuclear fission. And nuclear fission, they're talking about it giving us the ability to be able to have unlimited energy. This is why I say there's some organizational structure behind something like this, because unlimited energy, who does that directly affect? That affects the oil producing nations. That directly affects like how computer chips are being done, because and rare earths, because we need that to be able to make all of this solar panels. So that's a disruption to that industry. There's also a disruption to the power grid, to the utilities, because now they can't have bloated this and that and the other. And so it will be, there's a lot of players that would be directly affected, and it affected at such a large level that it could possibly be economically destructive, because of how much of the part of the energy economy it would take away. Because if you have nuclear fission, um, you have the ability to have near unlimited power. But the real question is how dangerous is something like that? So somebody actually, an organization actually taking the time to move forward and to be able to take somebody like this out would make a would be a big deal, in my opinion. So I think that there's a lot more to this than we're being told on the surface, but it's still early in the investigation, and they'll release the information that they want us to know on things like this. And so we've just got to sit there and take it and do our own digging and investigation. But because there's a lot of random information around it, it's very hard to be able to make an informed opinion, or have an informed idea of what's going on, because of all of this. And even something like this, you want to call into effect. So there is a possibility, in my opinion, that this may have been something sanctioned at an organizational level, whether it be a clandestine from a country, whether it be the OPEC nations coming together and putting this out. There's a lot of different players that could have done something like this, because it really boils down to dollars and cents. Do I have butt fleas? I don't know, but if I did, my dog would, if I could pick them off me. So, but anyways, so for those of you that are my regulars that are here for Sam, I'm going to give you guys a quick look at Sam before I move on to the next topic, because honestly, that is the main topic that I want to talk about when it comes to what's going on. So there's Sam sitting there all nice and on the couch. We got a fire going on in the background, kind of. But okay, so I want to show you guys a couple of things. With the world falling apart, with a lot of things that are happening, whether it be economically, whether it be safety, whether it be food security. I mean, those are the three main. Those are the three main things. Hey, what's up, Jerry? Uh, those are the three main things that I think that people focus on the most. If you can provide food security, economic security, and safety, and a safe place to be able to live, then that's all society really wants. They're willing to give up freedom. They're willing to give up a lot of things as long as you produce those three things for them. And to see that all three of those pillars are starting to come crumbling down, not only with what's going on, we got coast to coast, and we've gotten other things that are happening all over the place too, especially with ice across the country, and other things that are going on. There's a lot of civil unrest here in America. So the safety at home, or the environmental security, is not there. Plus, if you guys are listening, have followed what's going on with AI, OpenAI or ChatGPT just got caught putting out incorrect reports. Okay, and those incorrect reports are are influencing how policy and everything else is made, because what they're doing is they're trying to dampen the effect that it's actually having on the job market, which is the overall economy. Because the thing is if you get rid of all of your employees, then then that means you have nobody that has money to be able to buy your product unless you just have internal money. So unless the government gives you universal basic income, this whole thing comes crashing down. So therefore, your economic security completely goes away. And Sam Altman and OpenAI are being caught doing this. There's a whistleblower that's come out. There's articles that have been coming out about this. That's how I know about this. So you've got now your economic security is in jeopardy, and then your food security, because of everything that's going on in Europe, because of the tariff and trade wars. Trade routes are changing, and so therefore it becomes much harder to be able to get in the things that we used to be able to count on to get in because of all the different things. So now we have our three pillars: our food security, our economic security, and our environmental security, completely coming down. So as a person who has gone from being housed to being homeless to being nomadic to being housed and homeless and housed and homeless and housed and homeless over a period of 25 years, this is in these trying times with the things that are going on. I would like to, if you guys have questions, please ask those questions. Either ask them in the comments. I may make some content on it. I may use it to add to already content that I've got planned coming in the future. But the thing is, you have to be ready to go. People think that they can stay in their environment. They think that they can stay in their home. And that's best case scenario. But how much are you going to have to give up? How much crow will you need to give up in order to maintain your housing and just that basic semblance of stability, or that visual sense of stability? Are you going to give up your autonomy? Are you going to give up your privacy? How many hoops are you going to go through just so that you can get basic benefits to be able to live life the way that we're supposed to, or we're told that we're supposed to within America? Okay, in order to do that, those who refuse to submit may be forced into much different situations. This is why I talk about an inch bag, because at least 10% of society, based upon the law of averages, will rebel against this new authoritarian regime that's coming this way. Go on, Sam, around here. Come on, go. This new authoritarian regime that may be put in through AI and the surveillance state. It doesn't matter which party's in play; they're both doing it. And so, if you get to that point where you're thinking, okay, I need to be able to get out of this situation. What I will tell you is, if you choose to go the route of, I want to be a rebel and I don't want to submit to this, that means that you yourself will have to submit to a couple of ways of thinking. First of all, you are relying on the kindness and generosity of others. So therefore, your conduct, your character, your integrity, who you are as a human being will determine whether or not you will be able to survive in this lifestyle or not. Okay, for example, the reason why I never get accused of theft anywhere I go is because I always make sure to like, when people offer me things, no, sorry, I don't want it. I'm good. I got too much stuff as is. Do you want some of my stuff? Because I don't want anything from anybody. When something comes up missing, people don't go, oh, look at Friar Tuck, he probably took it. They look everywhere else but me, because I have zero want, need, or desire for their stuff, because in my mind, my stuff is always going to be better than anyone else I come in contact with. But that's just my own ego at play. So it's that simple mindset that you need to come from. That means you are going to have to figure out different ways to be able to rummage up work. In some areas, you can use things like Craigslist. In some areas, you may have to go knock doors. You may have to do other different things to be able to make money, whether it be going from construction company to construction company, or from fast food joint to fast food joint, to be able to get some sort of work. You've got to be willing to do that on a moment's notice at any time, because work may be scarce, especially if you want to not be completely beholden to the system, to where you may have to just come in for small periods of time. Basically, you call it your feeding frenzy. You come in, you grab what you need to grab, and then you go back to keeping to yourself yourself, because that's how you keep the system from interfering with you, is you give it no excuse to find you to begin with. Okay, so for fun and recreation, but now there are many important topics. Yes. Uh, uh, what? Yeah. What's up, TJ? I ain't seen you in a while. Okay. So, with that being said, you have to have this mindset that you are now freelancing as you go through towns, as you go through cities. When I first started out, if you guys remember, I made like $600 or $700 working for a guy, painting a couple of houses for him. No, actually, I made $300 painting one house for him, and he wanted me to do others, but I was like, "Nah, this is all the money I need." But I know if I want to go back there, I can go back there and paint houses or do whatever for him, because he liked the way I work. I worked really good, and so therefore you create these situations. What you're looking for are people that are themselves want to stay below the radar, but those are generally sketchy people to begin with. So you got to realize who you're dealing with. Some aren't, but most are. The one, even though they may be sketchy, it doesn't mean that they're not going to pay you. It just means that they may kind of see you more as a slave or a serf than you should be treated in the subcontracting situation. They may want to treat you like an employee, although paying you like a subcontractor. Okay. So those are some things to actually consider. What's up, DFA? Nice to see you, buddy. But anyways, hey, we got to talk, man. Your dog keeps coming in my yard. You're talking to the wrong dude, man. Come on, Sam. But anyways, with that being said, uh, this is one of the main, Sam, sit. This is one of the main things that you guys have to consider. So when you're in that situation, so if you think that you're going to backslide, what you should do is figure out ways, as part of not just your gear but just your mindset, is what skills do I have, what low hanging fruit can I go get that's under the table. You might, if you're an accountant, you might be able to get some accounting work under the table, but for the most part, probably not, because companies want something that's more legit, that's above the table, that's insured, and has all of this reputation. But these are different things that you could definitely do. Okay, so you want to be able to have something to be able to fall back on when you come out. Okay, that's one thing. The other thing is you want to be able to have good gear and correct gear. So I know that one of the things that I promised myself, that the next time I get housed up, is that I'm going to make sure that I have the right gear for any environment at any point in time, because I need to be able to go at a moment's notice without regard to the weather. And so I've spent about $800 over the last 2 months to make sure that I have that gear. But where did I put the majority, the bulk of my money to be able to get the gear that I got? There are three things that you need to really think about: your sleep system. And so like for me, I have a hammock, so I need a top quilt, and I need an under quilt. My top quilt is from Enlightened Equipment. It is the only place where I've been able to find a quilt to get me down to the temperatures that I want to get. I also am waiting on a duck down under quilt that will be here sometime next month. And I went and I did a lot of research on what type of bag that I wanted to have, because it doesn't matter how big what the size of your bag is. And this is where the price points really come in. And this is where I think that people really misunderstand price points. The reason why I chose Osprey, other than the fact that I know that they do gear for the Canadian military, is because they've perfected and they have a strong reputation for perfecting the suspension system within their bag. As someone who's carried a bag that only meant to have 40 pounds in it and having 60 pounds in it, and then having to walk 1,000+ miles with that, the amount of pain that I'm still in a year plus later after that became a certain, like, sobering moment of, like, this is a lot of pressure that I put on myself to be able to for nothing. Okay, because it had thin straps, it didn't have a proper suspension system. It was not really meant for anything over 40 pounds, and 40 pounds was really pushing it. It was more like it was meant more to be like a lightweight or a day pack, with like really big puffy gear. Okay, so this is just something that I have just picked up over time. Okay, so that's the reason why, instead of going for the AG, which is probably what most people would go for, just because it's a little bit less expensive, I was looking at the Aether, because the Aether, its max weight is 60, and it can go up to 40 pounds before you even start feeling anything, because of the suspension system. It has thicker pads. Instead of having a pass through for the hip belt like you have on my Teton, it's actually sewn, because that was one thing that I knew that I had to have, because I saw it, because it would cause an extra 3 inches sag, which then, even though you've got it put up proper, because the weight just kind of causes it to sag down, all of a sudden, doesn't matter how you do it, you're putting 80% of the weight on your shoulders, and then you start getting sore in places like this, where the straps are. And like, it was bruised for several months, and I could still feel it every time I touch it, and I still think about it. It's like right here is where it hurt, and that's right there in my collarbone, because I put so much pressure on it over time. So this actually has thicker things. So I want to show you a little bit of what I got from the Enlightened equipment. This here is this is the storage bag. This is actually a synthetic. It goes down to 20 degrees. It's pretty simple. Sam, not right now. I'm just going to kind of show you a little bit. I have already slept with it, because it gets cold in here at night. And I've already slept with it. It kept me warm. What I would say is that if you're going to try and sleep with it on your bed, is that you at least you close up part of the foot box, so that it stays on you, because without that foot box being closed up, you can kind of roll out from under it, because it's kind of really slick. It's not, because I mean, on a hammock, you're kind of in one spot, you just kind of tuck it, and you don't move very much. Versus, on a bed, I'm rolling around on the bed. Plus, I got to deal with the dog, because she moves around the bed, and then I start in the middle of the night, I start curling up in different ways. So, if you want to be able to move a little bit with it, you should at least fold up a little bit of the foot box, so that you have something to kind of keep as to hold it on. It also comes with straps and a salve. Another thing that I got, this was a gift for me. So somebody else had sent me the short versions, like the fingerless gloves, and those are great and all, but I can't really, they're not going to really do much for me. I love the hat so much that a friend decided to get me the wool gloves that would actually match the full wool gloves, and I've got a set of leather gloves to go over top of that, should I need to add an extra layer of protection. Okay, so if you're going to go outside, making sure that you have gear. It's not necessarily about how much you spend on it, because the areas where I spent money, that I put money in, was my sleep system, which was the top and bottom quilt, and my backpack, because my backpack, I'm going to have to carry that for months to years on end, and I need to make sure that it will not injure me along the way, because having the wrong bag, if you have to do long distance, is going to do more harm to your body than to do good. Now, I wanted something that was lightweight, but I also wanted something that had a good suspension system. A lot of people want to be able to carry a lot of weight, and if you're wanting to carry a lot of weight, you're going to want to get like an external frame, which is what I recommended for a friend at one point in time. But I'm trying to keep my weight down, so my weight is going down in my sleep system, because that's where, like, my first 10 pounds, I can actually I can lose a lot of that. But to be able to have decent gear if you're going to travel, and that's something that I would recommend. One thing that I really want to cover this summer is I really want to focus on the trail system and how to use it as a trade highway or byway, as a way to be able to maneuver around the country and to be able to go through towns. In a lot of the ways, think of it like the Silk Trail. But there are four major trails that you as an individual can walk. And if everything really breaks down after years, there'll probably be several other trails, like a middle and a southern trail to go through. But you've got four main trails to go that go east, west, and north, south. Okay, you got 3 that go north-south, and you got 1 that goes east-west that are actually known. There's a southern tier, but that's more of a bike trail, and then you've got one that kind of goes through the middle. It's almost it's very close to the Discovery Trail. Okay, so is anyone tired of? Okay, um, if I was homeless, I can't see leaving my city. Any other place is smaller with less services. Anything that is bigger has more homeless. But see, Canada Free, that's the thing. Homelessness, especially under the first Trump administration, is something that people are losing patience with. That's why Mini-Me down in Florida decided to force the counties to provide homeless camps that essentially work. They're more dangerous than the shelters. Okay, that's why they broke up the dignity villages years ago, is because there was more criminal activity happening there, and it was in such a concentrated area, even with the police there, because sometimes they all looked the other way because they were getting their palms greased as well. So they just let it be, and so therefore it became a cesspool of criminal activity. That's why they started taking down the dignity villages, and that's why a lot of cities keep saying, no, we don't want homeless camps, because they know that that stuff actually happens. And so if you want to be in a big city where they have more services, you've got to finding a digital income, regardless of how you feel about it, is the way of the future. You have to be able to have a digital income. Even if it's digital panhandling, you have to have a digital income. Why? Because that's going to be the only way you will be able to survive, because staying in the cities puts a target on your back. It's way more dangerous, and you are going to have way more trouble finding a place to sleep, because homelessness is expanding. They're saying people that are making like $300,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck. Don't understand how that's happening, but they're living paycheck to paycheck. Okay, so if they're living paycheck to paycheck at 300,000, and people at 100,000 are considered like lower class because they can't even afford the basics of the American dream, then I mean, just what about the majority, of people that make 50, 60, $70,000 a year? I mean, how are they going to survive except for living in the slums, or just getting to a point when their job gets automated to a point where they're sleeping out on a street corner? Okay, and then it becomes more dangerous because you're in the middle of what could be a powder keg. Because if there's enough homeless that go into a city, especially if we break down into a third world country, like look at anywhere in Africa, if we break down, what will end up happening is you'll have the homeless that will start the rioting and the unrest, because people will be going, what the hell's going on? So that's the last place you want to be. My thing, and this is the reason why whenever I've been homeless, my big thing is to keep moving at all times. Try and not sleep in the same spot, or if you do, you have a support network around you that keeps an eye on you. And that takes time to be able to procure, unless you're a local and you've already made friends with some of the homeless in an area you plan on. Like, this is where I would like to sleep if I were going to be homeless. So that might be an idea to go talk to those homeless and say, hey, look, I want to get to know you, da 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 da. So should you ever become homeless, you now actually have people that know you as a familiar face, and therefore you have safety. And because the thing is you're going to have to plan, unless you go through something like Stephanie at Open Air Properties, because I mean, $8,000 to $10,000 for a plot of land, that at least in Arizona, that's not bad. Okay, for your own peace of mind to know, even if the world falls apart, that is a peace of mind worth having. That's why I make sure to make my property payment every month without question at all, because it's probably one of the smartest investments that I could make in a situation where I have enough revenue coming in to be able to afford to be able to pay for something like that. Okay, and my revenue does not come from YouTube anymore, not like it used to. I get a payout every couple of months now. So my 100% of my income is at least 98% of it is from working a job. This is what I do because it's a hobby. You guys are my community. I love you guys, and I don't ever want to lose our connection because a lot of you guys are my friends. And if you guys know, I get to say hi. Okay, look into level 7 military clothes. Is a puffy jacket and puffy pants. I pick up the pants for 50, but surplus varies widely. The same commercial item would be 400. Yes. I there are some pieces of gear where weight is not a factor. Your cook set, your sleep system, your warm weather gear. Weight is not an option because survival is your only your only goal. Okay, so I just blocked Bud Russell. It will show down in the feed if you do so. Highly recommend it. Um, okay, who's Bud Russell? I don't. Okay, my dog. Yeah, let's put him in timeout because he's kind of been. Put user in timeout. We'll put him in there for 30 minutes. Because what I found out is if I put you in timeout, I put you in timeout across all of YouTube. And the last thing I want to do is put you in timeout for 24 hours across all of YouTube. That's a dick thing to do. Once I found out, I stopped doing that. But um Timu Triple A. Nice. Okay, so this is the things that I want to focus on this summer. So where I work at, we get the Christmas Eve is our last day until the 1st, so I get like a whole week off. You're going to be seeing me do a few more live streams, excuse me, and not only that, I'm going to be taking some time to put out some specific content because I've been sitting back and I've been trying to figure out. It's like I am somebody that wants to be self-employed for different reasons, and part of being self-employed is that means I need to figure out something that I can do that I can turn into some sort of business model. Anything, all of YouTube is a business model, whether you're getting it for free or not. There is a business model behind it. And those that use it that way are the ones that will be successful. Those that use it just to be content creators, you're not going to have very much success. That's one thing that I've learned over my years being in YouTube. So let's talk about the other aspect. We've talked about preparing to go on the streets. We've talked about being on the streets and how important having a good sleep system and a good pack is. Now let's talk about getting off the streets. This is the part that nobody really likes to talk about. They look at it and go, how do we prevent homelessness? They look at it and go, how do we get people off the streets? But once they get people off the streets, they just completely forget about them and go like, what, that person is off the streets, they're safe, they're good, we need to go on to the next person, not realizing that the lack of excuse me, I'm getting a dry throat, that the lack of support post homelessness is what causes people to become repeat homeless. Because when a person's homeless, they're in an erratic state of mind. They're under a lot of stress because society has told them that they need to have four walls, a job, a house, a car, all this stuff. They're told that they need to have that. And so not having that is a complete blow to their self-worth, their identity, and their ego. And so therefore, brain chemistry wise, emotionally wise, they're going to, at least for the first couple of months, they're going to be moping blobs, a lot of them. It's just the way it goes. When you first start out, that's kind of the way it is. You're like, because you're like, why am I here? I'm not lazy. I shouldn't be here. And a lot of people say that. Farm Girl was even saying that. She's like, I'm not lazy. Why am I doing this? And it's like, because you've kind of screwed yourself in a lot of ways. But the thing is you're gonna go through that. Not only that, it is socially acceptable within certain segments of society, depending upon what part of the country you're in, and all kinds of other things, to be mean, cruel, and vindictive towards the homeless. I once had a guy leave a comment that he saw a he saw a homeless person with like an 85-liter hiker's backpack from REI, let's say. And he saw that they had that, and he was so upset, and he believed that because they were homeless, they didn't deserve anything. And one, they shouldn't have been panhandling, and two, they didn't even deserve to have a decent bag. There is a certain segment of society that is going to be mean, cruel, and vindictive. The average person does not get to see this. The average person only gets to see the person standing there in the corner going, "Please help, I need money." Okay. And instead of seeing all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes when the lights are out, there's been people. There's one guy that in Portland that likes to go around and find where all the homeless are and call the cops so he can rustle them up and kick them out of the neighborhood because he had an altercation with one of them and now he hates all the homeless. And nobody bothered the guy. It was just one guy that was he was crazy to begin with, and he's in the state hospital. And he was no longer a problem after the police picked him up. But the thing is that because of that situation, that person has now taken it personal, as a badge of honor to go after all homeless because it is socially acceptable. And if I label you as a criminal, whether you're a criminal or not, it's socially acceptable to look down on you because you are now labeled as a criminal, whether you're a criminal or not. Even if the thing that you did was not even a crime, by me just labeling you as a criminal is basically it demotes you in your social status, and that demotion also determines opportunities, and it also determines whether or not people will trust or want to have anything to do with you because they need to virtue signal about how great they are as an individual. And so you just within society. So what happens when you get off the streets, when you finally get off the streets, is you may have some time. And I will tell you, I'm experiencing this now more than ever. Although I was on my property for about 7 months before I came here to Missouri, um, I I was still in that survival mode because I was still like I was barely eking by. If it wasn't for the kindness of people like Stephanie and some of you guys that helped me out in a time in which I really, really needed it, I would have crashed and burned and ended up right back where I'd started after working so hard to get to that point to begin with. Okay. And so now that I'm in a place where I'm housed, I've got a stable job, my job likes me. I've got a place I know I can leave Sam and she'll be taken care of. I know that now I can kind of like take a deep breath. That's when all of the bullshit that you went through over the period of time that you were homeless decides to start coming out. And it's going to come out in all kinds of weird ways. You're going to do things that are just going to be it's going to be really off kilter for you. And what I find that is the best way to be able to handle this is that if you understand that this is going to come, is to be able to have a conversation with people that you care about and let them know that I may be having a meltdown here in the very near future after I exhale from all the crap I just went through. So if you don't want to be around it, just kind of avoid me and I'll reach out to you when I'm done with it and we'll see where we go from there. Because you may decide that that wasn't a real friend to begin with. You may decide, you know what, I wouldn't want to subject my worst enemy to what I just did, because you will, and I have gone to those points where I've done things that are completely out of character for me because I'm still living in that state. And then the BS that I had to go through earlier on all compounds. And so all of a sudden, like I don't even remember doing this, but because the story lines up with, personality, things that I would do and things that I would say, I believe the story, but I ended up in a friend's room for about 45 minutes, apparently reliving a whole bunch of things that I'd went through simultaneously all at once. And this individual had to talk me down, had to, and for me, when I found out about it the next day, it was like horrifying to know that I was in that situation. Not only was I in that situation, but I had also don't even remember it. And the thing is the longer you're out there, the harder it is. The more stress that you put yourself under, the less I always tell people that I have a very low tolerance to stress for one primary reason. And that's because I've been put under it so much that as you come back from it and you're able to exhale, your body just asserts, says, I'm not doing this again. And then therefore screams louder, earlier each and every time because it doesn't want to go through all of that stuff. And so when you get out, you are going to have to go through that. And it is important that if there is no social services that are going to be there for you, which quite frankly, if you're smart, you want to do this within your social network. You want to be able to create friends while you're on the streets that you know will be there when it's like, look, I may end up I need somebody that's going to be there when I go nuts after I get off the streets and make sure I don't end up out here again. But the thing is you have to have somebody that's not going to be an enabler. You have to have somebody that's going to hold you accountable, not somebody that's going to sit there and placate you and go, oh, I know it was bad. Yeah, everybody knows it was bad. But the thing is I can't keep living that if I want to be a productive member of society and never end up there. It's sometimes just like when soldiers come home from war, they got to put that combat, they got to put that behind them because they need to come back, go to work, support a family, and continue living their life. And the thing is most people forget that they're going to have to come back and deal with it and process it so that they can continue living their life. Hey, what's up, Mitch? Nice to see you, buddy. Hi, Tuck. If you want a shower, a meal, or shelter, do you have to spend the night? No. There are people that are kind enough. If you're a home bum, um, people will offer you, like if you create a social network with house communities and just say, look, man, I don't get a shower very often because of da 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 da. If you could hook me up with a shower every once in a while, I'd appreciate it. You go in, you take your shower, you leave, you will always have an open door. If you go in, take your shower, camp out for a minute, and then go out, you may not have access to that. People are going to, if they offer you kindness, just take what it is they give you and quickly get on. Because the thing is people only want to help up to a certain point until it becomes an inconvenience. Okay. And once they've allowed you to complete your shower, therefore they've completed what they want. Continuing, if they're not really into it, or if they just did this as a nice thing to do because they're fellow human being, they're not going to want to continue to have a conversation, hear your traumas or whatever. They're just going to want you to get on and say thank you. And that's something that you'll have to think about. Also, when you're on trail, I had people offer showers. There's free hostels that will allow you to take a shower. People will drop you $5 to get a shower. You can go anywhere and pay for a shower, $10 at any of the gyms. It's called a day pass. Just ask them. It's like, look, dude, I just want a shower. I'll give you $10. And you'll generally get it, even if their day pass is $20. And if you tell them that you're homeless, you just need a quick shower, most of the time they'll just let you go if they have any sense about them. Some are dicks, but most aren't. About that. So finding a shower, that's something I wouldn't worry about. Okay, legal or illegal. Okay, okay, but yeah, Todd, that's my opinion. So, okay, but anyways, guys, it looks like my battery's about to die. It looks like we've been going for almost an hour, which is, I kind of cap it off at an hour. But there's going to be, I want to rebrand, not necessarily rebrand. Okay, I'll put it to you simply. I started off, I got my go where I actually got my the wind under me. That's when I started actually making money, is when I finally committed to talking about the homeless subject. Once I stopped becoming homeless, or once I stopped being homeless, I tried to change it because I didn't want to continue talking about homelessness for various reasons. And that kind of backfired on me in a lot of different ways, for a lot of different reasons. I think that this channel, I'm very attached to it because I've made a lot of friends here. The last thing I want to do is just completely walk away from this channel. So I want to redo it, even so it can bring in an extra $500 or $600 a month, to offset the inflation that's coming. Because this is something that you're going to have to get into doing, whether you have a job or not, is you are going to have to figure out side hustles and supplemental ways to make money to be able to survive and be able to keep things going uh, in the future at the bare minimum. So when my other gear comes in, I'm definitely going to do a live stream. I'm going to show it to you a little bit, and I'm going to once my underquilt comes in, we're going to go down to the park because they got some good trees, and I'm going to hang up my hammock with my underquilt, and we're going to get that thing set up, and I'll be showing you my down underquilt as well, because I'm looking forward to that. I did it for two reasons. One, down is supposed to be lightweight, but I wanted something that would get me down to 0 degrees. And I think that uh, I think that uh, this was my only option. I had to pay for it custom because they only, like, once you start getting down that low, they want you to have like booties and a head, hat, and everything else like that. And they just give you a quarter one, and it's like, no, I don't want a quarter one with all that extra gear that I have to put on and off. I just want an 80-incher. So I've got an 80-incher coming. So but these are just different things that you need to consider if you're going on, if you think, wow, I might be homeless. Just realize, if you really are the productive person that you think, if you're willing to be creative and think outside the box, you I in my lifetime, outside of owning a business, I made more money being homeless than I ever did being off the streets. Even with what I'm doing here at Planet Sub, um, I would have made more. I could make more doing my hustles on the street that I normally do, than what I'm doing there. So some people might find it to be a long lifestyle that they like. But the thing is once you start having money coming in, you start wanting comforts, and then you start getting housed, and then you start getting away from that hustle. So it becomes a transition, because you're just doing it because you're in the environment, you got time to kill, you got all this other stuff going on. So, but you should all consider having some sort of side hustle within the digital economy to hedge your bets against artificial intelligence. Because as much as you think that it's no big deal, don't worry about it. It's all fake. It's all a hype. It will be nothing. Um, I strongly disagree with you, and there's a lot of people that have plenty more evidence than I do that prove the opposite. That things are going to be really, really bad, and this is where the need for universal basic income comes in. And so again, there's a lot of people that hike these trails that are on Social Security because it's the only way they can afford to live and be on Social Security. They may move 5 or 10 miles a day, but they're still moving because it's the only thing that they can do to be able to continue to survive and not get messed with by the police. Mm. I wish Bucknut was here, because I wanted to tell him that I tried the peanut butter whiskey, and if you try it mixed with if you try it mixed with Coke Zero, it tastes just like butterscotch. And then there's some chocolate one that tastes just like Tootsie Rolls. So I got to hide those from myself because it tastes too good. I don't care about the alcohol content. I just like the taste of Tootsie Rolls and butterscotch. So that was good. But anyways, guys, that's what's going on moving forward. I hope that I answered what I said that I would answer in this live stream. With that being said, if you guys want to support the channel, make sure you subscribe, make sure you show up to my live streams. One day I will get consistent on it, but until then, they're just going to be random. And with that, thanks guys for being here, and I will see you. Merry Christmas to you too, TJ. I will see you guys the next live stream.